Happy New Year and welcome to episode 48 of the Alfa Romeo Driver Podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and with me this afternoon I have Ashley Croft, who's one of the sales team focusing on club members for our official insurer, Chris Knott. Good afternoon, Ashley.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here.
Brilliant. Just before we start to talk about the car and how we got there, tell us a little bit about your job.
Yes, my job's an interesting one. I see the other side of the Alfa membership, the part that a lot of people aren't too interested in. See a lot of the club come through to Chris Knott. A lot of people very passionate, even when they're talking about the insurance side of things, which is always good to see. And yeah, working with the Alfa Club in terms of providing cover for the members.
And how long have you been doing that?
Well, I've worked for Chris Knott for 7 years, but I've recently joined the sales team about 3 months ago.
Okay.
Before that, I was working with Nick Day in the marketing team.
Okay.
So again, actually still working quite closely with the club, just in a slightly different format. So now I'm just seeing and getting to talk to the club members actually face to face rather than on forum. So,
of course, we've had Nick on the podcast in the past.
Yeah.
Again, before we get on to the reason for recording this podcast, tell me a little bit about your car history up until now.
Car history has been a bit staggered. I started off with what was nicknamed the Coffin. It was a very old Fiat. I don't even know how you pronounce them. A Fiat Cinquecento, I think it was.
Cinquecento, yeah.
Which was purchased from my friend after it sat on his driveway for many years for £50. And about £500 later, it saw the road for about 2 weeks. And then that was the end of that. And then it's it's been sort of standard cars like Vauxhall Astras and things like that up until very recently when I purchased the first Alfa.
Why did you decide to buy an Alfa? Was it interaction with the club members or something you'd seen elsewhere?
Sort of goes back quite a way, actually. It goes back to classic car shows that I used to go to with my dad. And I'd somehow always end up at the Alfa section and always wanted an Alfa. And unfortunately, was never in a position to own one until quite recently when I was in the, remit to buy a new car and I saw the Giuliettas come up. So that's why I've sort of gone for one now. But yeah, certainly working with the club has helped as well,
And you say not in a position to buy one, probably not in a position to insure one until relatively recently as well.
Yeah, probably is that as well. Yeah. I'm still only 27, so I've got years of ownership left in me. But yeah, it was always very much whenever I've purchased a car, it was always very much just I need something to get me about. What is there that's at the local dealership around the corner that's in my budget. And I was go in there and go, yeah, that'll do. And off I went. But when I was looking for this car, I was sort of in a bit of a different position where I could be a bit fussy and could actually choose what I want for one. So,
and you say you were always drawn to the Alfa areas, exhibitions and stuff. What do you think it was about Alfa that you were so interested in?
They're always different. You see all of these cars, and like I mentioned, that you see like Vauxhall Astras and Ford Fiestas and things, and they're all the same, and then you go and you look at an Alfa, and they're always different. They've never followed the crowd in anything that they've done, and you see all these would now be, classics, weren't necessarily at the time. They could have been new ones, but they line up next to each other, and not one of them looked remotely similar to the one next to them, or similar to anything else that was at any of the show, and they've always had this uniqueness about them that I've liked. And that's for me what I like about cars. That's where my interest comes, is that you can make it as unique as you want, and that's what I've always liked. They've always stood out, haven't they? So yeah,
and I think there's a famous illustration which I've seen as a poster and various other things. I've got it as a T-shirt, which is Alfa grills from the kind of 1930s all the way through to the present day, and they're all recognisably Alfa.
Yes,
but everyone's different.
Yes, yeah,
which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, my dad would always take me to these shows because he was a Jag and still is a Jag enthusiast, and he'd take me there when I was a kid, sort of like 10, 11, and he'd go straight to the Jag section and he'd see all the XJSs lined up. And once you've seen one, you've seen them all, really, because every XJS looks the same. Hardly any of them ever run, and apart from the colour, they're all exactly the same. So after seeing one, I got very bored of that. I sort of wandered around, and then all of a sudden I realised I've been in this Alfa section for so long, and even if you got two of the same car next to each other, they were different, and they've always been different, and that's what I like about them.
So you said you've got a Giulietta. Was that the order it came? Did you decide to buy a Giulietta and it was an Alfa, or did you go looking at other Alfas as well?
So I looked at Alfas. So I started off on Auto Trader, went straight to Alfa Romeo and started looking through the models to see which one would sort of suit, and it ended up being Giulietta. So I looked at Mitos, but wanted a 5-door, and then you start looking at budget, and then you start looking at size and things like that. And the Giulietta just fit the bill. It ticked all the boxes. It had the engine that I want, sort of the power that I was after, about the right size, because I've got a 3-year-old, so 5-door and a bit of a boot,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know if you listened to it. Our second ever episode was a battle between the Mito and the Giulietta registrar, and the Mito registrar's only real selling point for the Mito, as far as I can remember, was that it had 3 doors.
Yeah,
it didn't seem to get that wasn't always a selling. And I should admit my bias as well. I have a Giulietta.
Yeah, they was never going to win then, was they?
Well, it wasn't me he was up against, but it's good. It's good fun with that one. You might want to have a listen to that at some point. You narrowed it down to Giulietta. Where did it go from there in terms of models and colours, and what was your short list?
Well, I was a little bit limited because once I went Giulietta, I sorted it by the nearest people. And there was, I think, about 4 in the in sort of travelling, what I would consider acceptable travelling distance. And funnily enough, they were all for sale from SDR Autos, who I think actually advertise in the Alfa magazine and work with you guys. Because obviously we're based in Hastings. I live in Bexhill and they're in Wadhurst, so it's only about half an hour down the road. And they had a number of different models, and this one, the one that I ended up purchasing it's a 1.4 TB, the 170 model in a distinctive trim, and it had loads of the optional extras on there, full service history and sort of, every bell and whistle you could want apart from the seats, really. Right. Tried to get a cloverleaf, but they were too far away and too out of budget. So apart from that, it was this engine that I sort of liked, and went out for a test drive, and that was it. I didn't want to wait the 2 weeks until I got the car, really.
So presumably it was quite nice to be able to go along and see 4 at the same place and kind of make that choice between the cars in the flesh. Yeah, I mean, when I went there, I was quite amazed. You go there and there's they're right next to another car sales place there, but you go there and you pull up and you can see their lot because it's just Giulietta, one little Mito that's sort of tucked in the corner, and then I think they had another classic Alfa tucked in the corner somewhere, which is probably a project. And then, there was just absolutely Alfas everywhere. And you go into their waiting room and they've just got Alfa stuff everywhere, Alfa models. And, you're just surrounded by Alfa, which was a bit of you just walked into like Alfa world. It was just, they were just everywhere. It was like a kid in a candy shop almost. And how long have you had it?
I bought it in the middle of October. So very recently, actually. So very recently. But thoroughly enjoying it.
So happy with the decision? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, the drive on it is absolutely brilliant. Very, very smooth, very nice. It's already showing up to be a bit of a diva. It's already been back to the garage once. So.
I hesitated to. My next question was to ask you whether you had any problems with it, and I kind of always hesitate to do that because of the reputation and. I've had 15 now, and some of them I've not had a single problem with, and others, lots of minor ones. But so is it the usual kind of nothing serious but annoying?
It's exactly that, funnily enough. Yeah. Engine management light come up, DNA disabled, stop start gone, plug it in, and it's the gear level. It was the gear level position sensor or something, tells the car which gear it's in. So I phoned Luke at SDR and said, this has come up. And he went, it's funny that pretty much every Giulietta I sell comes up with them. And I've done about 50 of them. Bring it out. I've got the parts here ready because I have a stock of them because it's that common. And I'll do it while you wait and it'll be an hour. And, he's done it and it's touch wood. It's, back to where it should be. Fingers crossed.
So that's the TCT box, is it?
Yeah, it's the sensor, the one, I'm not sure what the name of the actual sensor is. It's basically underneath the gear stick. So you have to go underneath the car, take the heat shield off. And there's a little sensor underneath there, which basically controls the start-stop, tells the car when you're in neutral so that the start-stop can kick in. I think that just gone up the wall. Apparently it's very, very, very common, and he does absolutely loads of them to the point where he stocks the sensors in because he knows that he's going to have a job for that week with one of them in there. So, yeah.
Any advice that you'd have for other people who might be thinking about taking the plunge? There's the classic Jeremy Clarkson quote about you're not a real petrolhead until you've owned an Alfa Romeo, but most people haven't.
No.
So, any advice?
Yeah, take your time, shop around, and wait for the right one to come up. Don't just go, that's an Alfa Romeo, I'll have that one, because it's just all the wrong way to do it. Have a look around, find out exactly what you're after. Just like I did, I was after hatchback, 5-door, etc. Find the right one, and then just keep shopping around until the right one comes up for the right price, and check the history of them. Is probably one of the big things I would say, is check the history of it, how well it's been looked after. But other than that, enjoy it.
I guess the most important question is, have you joined the club yet?
I haven't. No, I haven't, funnily enough.
And before you take the plunge with a full membership, our social media presence isn't a bad place to start, Facebook in particular. So there's an official owners club forum, which is for all Alfas. It's not just a Giulietta specific one. And then the way the club's organised, we have geographic sections. So coming from Kent, I should be better at this, but I can never remember whether you come under...
We'd be Kent and East Sussex, because we're East Sussex here. So we'd fall under that register. Because Hastings and Bexhill region.
So they organise lots of kind of local things. So they do, Sunday brunch runs out to cafes and stuff like that. And then the other part of the club is model registers. So there's a Giulietta register where it's just Giulietta owners kind of swapping tips, and if it hasn't already, your DAB radio aerial will fail at some point.
He's got the part on order for me, funnily enough. So it's going to be going back there in a week or two.
That was the first thing I had to fix on mine.
Yeah.
But obviously things like the register are great for stuff like that. And there's a separate register Facebook page, so I'll send you some links to those afterwards.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about membership. Because obviously we see a lot of members come through. So I was going to ask about the benefits of the club. And
obviously we have our own approved insurer, but you probably get a better staff discount than you would a member discount.
Yeah.
So there's a magazine which I edit, which is 6 times a year. So that's a kind of 120 page. I'm exaggerating slightly, 110 page A4 glossy type magazine. Yeah. There's a club forum. There's discounts in places like Halfords and lots of detailing. I don't know whether you polish cars. But lots of detailing companies and stuff give us discounts, and people like Tainer batteries and we've got some odd discounts which I've used a couple of times. Things like cottages.com have a club discount, so you can take the family away and get a good deal on a weekend away in a cottage or something.
Yeah.
Plus, obviously the sections and registers, which are all part of the club.
Yeah.
Oh, and Pirelli tyres. We've got a fantastic deal with Pirelli tyres where you get cash back on the tyres you buy.
Brilliant. Which
don't even have to be for an Alfa, as long as you're a club member.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I think that tops out about 120 quid if you replace all 4, depending on what size they are. So yes, there's lots of benefits. Plus, and that was the next thing I was going to ask you about, we run a lot of events. So typically we have a Spring Alfa Day, National Alfa Day, which you've seen from the podcast, which will be at Bicester again in 2022. And we have a Southern Alfa Day, which is not a million miles away from you in 2022. That's in Amberley, just outside Arundel.
Not far at all, yeah.
So again, you said you got into Alfas going to car events with your dad. If that's something you still do, there's plenty of those going on.
Yeah, it's good. And I've started already getting my 3-year-old into it as well, because we've got a local one. It's not an Alfa one, but it's the Bexhill 100 show. So there was some Alfas there, but it's just a whole host of classic cars, and you got like American pickup trucks and hot rods and all sorts there. And I was we went to that, and I sort of dragged him around there almost begrudgingly. I think at the age of 3 years old, I don't think he was too interested. But I sort of tried to start him off young. So definitely.
My 3-year-old grandson is more than capable of recognising an Alfa grill, and I've got him well trained already.
Well trained.
Can't quite say it's an Alfa Mayo, but that's close enough as far as I'm concerned for now.
Yeah, a little bit of mayo. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the other question I was going to ask you, so people tend to go 2 ways with Alfas. They buy one and don't get on with the quirkiness and the difference, and they only ever have one.
Yeah.
And then spend the rest of their life talking about how much they regret not having another one. And And people who end up, I think the highest number we've had on the podcast so far, somebody who had 72.
Cool. Blimey.
Oh, actually, we have one person who'd had so many he couldn't remember. He had 56 currently, but had no idea how many he'd had in total.
56 currently? Wow.
Yeah. He does own a Alfa race preparation business up in Crawley.
Well, that makes more sense now, yeah.
Yeah. Although I think a big chunk of those are his personal cars. So, assuming that you're hooked now, any thoughts on what the next one might be? Any dream Alfas that you'd love to own?
Well, yeah, I think logically the next step up from a Giulietta is a Giulia. I think that's a logical step. However, I don't like doing things logically. Doesn't make sense to me. And I'd like to own a second one, something that will be a weekend car. So it would either be a classic Spider or it would be something like a 4C.
Right.
That's more like a pipeline dream at the moment. But, you know, in an ideal world, you know, I'd have a daily one there, and then I'd have something that's for the weekend that's a little bit of fun and, you know, just something that I can just have there for when I fancy using it in the summer.
Well, that's the other dimension of Alfa ownership, that with a young family, I wasn't going to kind of push you down, but I think the average number of Alfas owned by people in the club is 2 point something.
Yeah.
So I've got a Giulietta and I've got a 939 Brera shaped Spider.
Yes.
So I've got the something for the weekend. It's definitely a good combination.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, use one for a commute and then one for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I've still got plans with this one yet. You know, like I say, I'm very, very new in the whole lot of Alfa ownership. You know, 3 months in, so I'm actually quite interested in the modification side of the car scene, which is actually something I was going to ask you about in terms of the club. Yeah, for me, modification is a big part of my sort of car enthusiast overall. Yeah, generally, you know.
Obviously, there are insurance implications, but the 1.4 is a very, very tunable engine. As mine's got the 1750 TBI, which is also there's a lot you can do with that. And there are, yes, I mean, we've got, like any club with nearly 4,500 members, we've got people with all sorts of different interests.
Yeah.
And you'll come across Alfa owners who are absolutely religious about it being exactly as it was when it left the factory.
Yeah.
And then we've got owners with Breras with airbag suspension and, you know, any modification you can think of, somebody's done it. And I talked about the registers early on. So we've got, most of our registers are model specific. So you join the Giulietta register, but there's also a modified register, which is for any car that's been modified in any way. And that can be anything from, you know, sticking a tuning box on to full body kits and, you know, aftermarket wheels and big stereos and all of those kind of things. So there's definitely a strong modified scene within the club.
Okay.
Again, I'll send you a link to the modified registers page. But I mean, I'm an old fart, but my Giulietta has a carbon front splitter, carbon mirror caps. It's got the 19-inch front wheels from a Giulia on instead of the original 18-inch. It's got 19-inch Giulia front wheels all round.
Yeah, okay. Are they the same fitment then?
They are, yeah. So they just go straight on. And when I told people I was getting them, they said, "Oh, you want to put spacers in them as well?" And then when we put them on, they are just perfectly legal. They just completely line up with the edge of the wheel arch. So you definitely wouldn't have wanted to put. But there are fantastic aftermarket exhausts and stuff for the 1.4 multi-air.
Yeah.
There are, trying to remember, Super Sprint, I think, do one with a switch where you can change the exhaust note electronically by opening a flap in the exhaust.
Oh,
if you really want to spend 1,600 quid on exhaust. But as with everything with modification, you can do as much as you like with it, as long as you've got the budget.
And I think that's what I like about modifications. It comes back to that uniqueness that I think drew me to Alfas in the first place, is that I know I'm never going to own the fastest car in the world, but people can still spot my old cars driving around here. And I have people that I hardly ever talk to that message me and say, "Oh, I saw your old Vauxhall Astra," and I'm from a mile away, you know. And it was only, you know, simple stuff that I'd done. I just sort of lowered it slightly, smoked the rear lights and the side repeaters, removed the badges, things like that. And it just makes it stand out so much more. And you can spot your car from a million miles away. And, you'll never see another one that's the same as your car.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest difference from what you've done before and Alphas is sometimes you have to work a little bit harder to find the parts, but you'll always find them. So all my little carbon, I've got carbon door handles as well. They all came from a company in Italy called Koshi, but Maxton do a front and rear splitters for the Giulietta, and so there are UK based modding companies that do bits. But often you'll have to Google it and then work out the exchange rate in euros and wait for it to arrive. But
yeah, I've heard a lot about
that's part of the
already,
fun.
So, I've seen quite a few of the Alphas. There's one local to me, actually. His car looks the exact same as mine, exact same year, shape, everything, apart from his has got, I think it's got lowering springs and It's got the Maxton body kit on there and separate wheels, and he's done something to the exhaust. And the car just looks like a totally different car.
Yeah.
Just a splitter, a diffuser, side skirts and some wheels, and that's it. You put them next to each other, you'd hardly recognise them.
And a lot of the things that people liked about the Cloverleaf launch edition with the carbon side skirts and the carbon lip spoiler and stuff, all of those are available. Copies of those are available from modding companies. So if that's the look you want, you can get everything the launch edition had.
Yeah.
Yeah, sky's the limit.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the floor's the limit if you're lowering it, I guess.
Yeah, how low do you want to go?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
that's been great, and I hope you have a long and enjoyable Alpha ownership, and thanks for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. Thanks, it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been good to come on.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. We'll be back on Sunday the 16th of January at the same time, 1:30 p.m. on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podbean, Podcast Addict, and everywhere else good podcasts are found. Until then, stay safe.